Hello, YouTube, and welcome all who are watching in real life. I'm Jesse Tovar, and this is Morning Time Reading at My Place Cafe. Latanya Smith and I are looking forward to hearing from Lorinda Hawkins Smith. So before I continue, My Place Cafe is located within Hentif Square at the corner of Woodbury and Los Robles. Since we're live streaming during cafe hours, we hope you drop by for a coffee, cold brew, or latte. My Place Cafe uses coast to coast coffee roasters. The cafe also sells breakfast sandwiches, oatmeal, waffles, and more. I'm thrilled to have Lorinda Hawkins Smith reading here this late morning. It's not every day we're in the company of someone who's appeared in iconic shows such as Living Single, Wayne's Brothers, Strong Medicine, movies like Mama Said, and The Soloist. I actually haven't felt this thrill since I had Henry Estiva in my car, all because I wanted to be nice and give him a ride on a hot summer day in Burbank. But that was 2019, and this is the end of 2021. And Lorinda is the author of Justice or Just Me, The Bite. So yesterday I watched the short solo play version of Justice or Just Me. I actually loved it. I love how I liked seeing it in that medium as well. And I also read the book, and it's amazing. One thing you learn in this play and novel is that it's not justice when the victim is accused of being the aggressor, all because the victim went on the defense. This novel ends on what appears to be a cliffhanger with the line, I don't even know how I got to Leslie and Curtis. I have no memory of driving there. Oh boy, I've heard newbies to drinking say I have no memory of making it back safely in awe and wonder. Anyways, here's another part from chapter 17 that I'll read. The sentence is I was immediately on duty upon awakening. Like Dominique, many of us here and those watching can relate to that feeling on call right after waking up at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 in the morning. As for my comments about the second chapter, I will say this. I love that Dominique and I share a commonality of having a TV friend. I felt like I had one when I was little too, since I had a hard time making friends. Anywho, in this chapter, a series of unfortunate events occurred, and this also shares a parallel of Jeannie Mai, who expressed in her YouTube channel that she was amazed when her mother finally believed her when Jeannie said to her mother that a family member was doing inappropriate things to her at a young age. When young Jeannie told her mother in that YouTube video, Jeannie accounts that her own mother took her daughter's concerns as Jeannie not getting along with her family member. It is unfathomable when family members harm one another. It really is. So, all of you, you have to read this coming of age novel. You won't be disappointed. Without further ado, Latanya Smith and I welcome Lorinda Hawkins Smith.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. My Place Cafe, Jesse and Latanya. Thank you for showing up. Yay, woohoo! Okay, well, as Jesse so aptly described, Justice or Just Me, it's chronicling the character Dominique Mills, and it's a trilogy, and this is book one, The Bite. Every book is going to be the bite, the fight, and the flight. And I'm intentionally waiting with releasing each book, waiting to release it on June 22nd, as that would be my deceased best friend's birthday. And to honor her, I want to release each book on her birthday. So without further ado, I felt led. I asked some friends which chapters should I read, their suggestions. One suggestion I got was seek the Lord. I let him direct you. Yes, hi. Please come in. And so the first chapter I was led to, Mark, seems a bit mature, but I don't see any kids around. I hope there aren't any kids watching right now. But it's chapter 5, and the title is Wait, I Thought I Was a Good Person. My first car that my father gave me on my 16th birthday, a Mazda RX-7, got stolen. It was parked right outside on the street. It was kind of surreal. I was half asleep on the couch and I heard a car start up that sounded like mine. I casually said, "That sounds like my car. I nonchalantly got up to look out the window in time to see it driving away. Clark couldn't protect me from everything. My car got stolen 2 or 3 more times and got recovered. Each time, more of it would be missing. I finally completely totaled it. I was extremely fortunate to be able to walk away from that accident. It was a miracle if you were to look at my car. Clark was talking about marriage, and I still couldn't see myself married to him as much as I wanted to see it. I didn't know what was wrong with me. He treats me like a queen. He supports me in anything I do. He provides for me, and I can't commit to him like that. I just wasn't in love. And part of me was still thinking that Joaquin was the husband for me since he was my first. Clark took me to St. Thomas to be part of his friend's wedding. It was so romantic. He proposed to me there. I said, no. I felt so bad. I kept saying I wasn't ready. I felt I was still too young. What started to eventually happen was that I wasn't even turning out to be a good girlfriend. I was doing things I never thought I would do. I was in an acting class, and they were having a going away party for one of the students. There was an obvious chemistry between the two of us. Clark must have been at work. I went to it, had some drinks, and Patrick and I proceeded to get really close, too close. We ended up having sex and then an affair after. He only had a little time left before he was going to New York. When I would see Clark, he knew something was off. He said he had a dream. He said it was horrible. He didn't want to talk about it. I asked him to tell me about it. He said it was me and another guy. He then told me details in his dream that were identical to what had been taking place, but he couldn't have known. I told him he was right. That was a horrible dream. And told him it was only a dream. I lied. He was convinced that the dream had to mean something. I denied that it did. And that was it. Well, before Patrick left to go to New York, I actually had this stupid romantic fantasy that I could have his baby. Wouldn't that be romantic? He's about to go away, but wait, I'm pregnant. Why did I think that? Because then that's what happened. I found out I was pregnant. I just knew it was Patrick's. I told him. He was shocked, but it wasn't going to change his plans. He left the choice up to me what to do. So romantic. I told Clark that I was pregnant. He, of course, assumed it was his. He was so excited. He loved me so much. Just the thought of us having a child together made him the happiest man on earth. I told him that I wasn't ready to have a child. This disappointed him deeply. He said, nevertheless, the choice was mine. Whatever I decided, he would support me. I decided to get an abortion. Clark was right by my side through it all, and even paid for it. I don't know who it was more difficult for, him or me. I didn't know what I would do without that man. He was an absolute dream. I made a promise to God that if I were ever to get pregnant again, I would keep the baby. A friend of mine stayed with us for a time because she was coming out of an abusive marriage. Clark was more than okay with that. She actually cooked to show her gratitude, which was more than I did. The abuse she was subjected to was at the hands of a man I introduced her to. We were still in high school and went to Maryland's Back Street, a club for minors, and he was there. Maryland's Back Street, shout out to Maryland's Back Street. Pasadena. I guess I didn't change that name. I'm sorry. Okay. Whoops. He asked me to dance. I had never seen him before. I declined, but introduced him to Polly in the hopes that she would dance with him. She did more than that. They went into the military together after getting married very soon after they met. They hadn't been dating very long. I was supposed to be in the wedding, but was salty that they picked the bridesmaid out of a hat. I felt it should have been me. As a result, I wasn't in the wedding. I saw it as Polly wanting to escape where she lived. That's why she got married so quickly. He went into the police academy and became a police officer. He seemed to be really good for her. They would run together. It wasn't long before Polly became pregnant. I was Crystal's godmother, although I was hardly ever there. I had a problem with how harsh Polly was with her daughter. It hurt my heart and made it extremely difficult for me to be around that. Things would go along fine in my relationship with Clark for a time. We would be close. It would be comfortable, like we were married. I would be faithful, and then there would be a snag, another obstacle. I was with Clark for 5 years. I was working in an acting troupe, and again, I had obvious chemistry with one of the actors. We had an affair. This time it was worse. It would actually take place at our apartment. I was getting more and more bold. It was like an addiction. I didn't want to be unfaithful. I didn't want to be doing it, but it was like I couldn't stop myself. It was like a disease. I was turning into the person that I despised so much. All the things I thought I would never do, I was doing. When I would have sex with Clark, it would be different. I wouldn't be as interested, and of course, I would be full of guilt. I wanted to come clean. I had to come clean. It was eating me alive, but I didn't want to hurt him. One day it was done for me. Clark approached me with a used bloody condom. I was on my period. What's this? It was put in the bathroom trash can by Malcolm. I didn't know why he didn't wrap it up and flush it, but there it was looking at me. I broke down and came clean about everything, crying my eyes out. He was infuriated, hurt, completely crushed. He didn't know what to do, but he knew he had to get out of there. He left. There I was, left with the fact that I destroyed the one person in the world that mattered the most. I didn't know what this meant for the relationship. I didn't know where we would go from here. Clark moved out and left me the apartment. I saved my money and eventually got my own place. And he, being typical Clark, helped me with that. He even checked it out before I signed the contract. We still were able to remain friends. We even worked together cleaning that apartment so he could get his security deposit back. Clark and I agreed to take a break. The break didn't last very long, and I started to spend most of my time at his place. We were acting like a couple again. During that break, I found myself doing things that I never thought I would do, ever do, or be capable of doing. I actually got involved with a married man. I became part of this comedy group, and one of the members was married. It was the most unorthodox comedy group ever, and their way of coming up with material was even more out there. One would get his inspiration from sucking on his marijuana-filled pipe. The other would get completely drunk. I was neither a drinker nor a pot smoker, so I would always wonder how I would fit in. I couldn't deny that most of their material was in fact funny, and they were really talented. The member that would get drunk would constantly try to convince me to join them at a bar for drinks. I finally gave in, and that's when we got intimate. Alcohol. We had the affair, and of course, it would affect the shows. The whole thing eventually unraveled because I could not be in it anymore, being this other woman. I had lost all respect for myself. After seeing what was out there on the break and knowing that what I had with Clark was so rare, it was easy to want to go back with him. I was determined to make it work this time, like I wasn't before. Again, I had some doubts about myself. Things were going really well. I still couldn't shake the feeling that there was just something missing. We started talking about marriage again, and this time I was actually considering it. Then we went to a friend of mine's birthday party. When her party was nearing the end, she lined up her friends outside of her bathroom, and she would meet with each of us one by one. It was my turn to go in. Hello. I closed the door behind me. It was kind of weird. I didn't know what to expect. She was sitting on the toilet when she said to me, "Where you are now, you are very comfortable. You can stay where you are and continue to just be comfortable, or you can leave and have a series of high highs and low lows. The choice is yours." This spoke directly to my spirit. That must be why I can't make it work with Clark. I knew what I had to do. I made up in my heart what I had to do. I couldn't be with Clark anymore. I asked my friend how she does what she just did, and she said nonchalantly, "Oh, it just comes and goes." I knew I was with Clark because he made me feel safe, but that's not a good reason to be with someone. I have to experience the high highs and low lows. It's almost like it was predestined in my character. Even though I had made up my mind about what I had to do, I still was extremely attached to Clark. He was my very best friend in the whole world. Since I had such a difficult time doing it myself, life stepped in. All of a sudden, it was extremely important to Clark that I be friends with Curtis and Leslie. He said they had been an important part of his life when he was trying to get through the hurt and the pain that I had put him through. I told him that I appreciated that they were there for him, but I had no interest in hanging out with them. All during our relationship, we had double dated with them and hung out with them. We had become really close, all four of us. But when Clark and I broke up, they chose sides, and it was his side they chose, leaving me out in the cold. Leslie also said some things regarding my acting that were really out of line. Clark and I didn't really talk about it anymore. We went out to dinner, and he told me that he would be going out of the country for work. This was normal for him. He said he would call me when he would get back. He would be gone for about 2 weeks. I told him that I would miss him and be looking forward to his call. 2 weeks went by, no call. 3 weeks went by, no call. This was so unlike him. I was a nervous wreck. I started calling his office to see if he had gotten back. I was calling his friends. I turned into one of those women that hunt down their man in desperation. I am so not one of those women, but I was then. I couldn't understand if he was okay, why he wouldn't call and simply tell me that he was okay. I couldn't understand if he never wanted to talk to me again, why he wouldn't just simply tell me that too. But here I was, left with nothing. You know a person for 5 years and you kind of need more closure than that. It tore me up. I then started remembering how he dealt with his ex-girlfriend who would call. He wouldn't. He would evade or disregard her altogether. He would never just be straight with her. I believe that's called passive aggressive. I went into a serious depression. I tried to take up smoking, but the moment it felt like my body was changing and needed it, I stopped. I had quit my job with the theater company that I had been with for years and was hostessing at a restaurant, which wasn't paying much at all. I thought I could go straight to serving instead of hostessing and make better money, but that wasn't the case. I was stressing now about how I was going to pay rent. I would get residuals from time to time, but still, it wouldn't be enough to pay my rent since I quit the theater company. I should have just humbled myself and asked the theater company to take me back, but my mind was made up. My friend that stayed with Clark and I needed to stay with me again, but I told her that I would need help with the rent. She seemed agreeable to it, but then flaked. The whole Clark thing was making it very difficult for me to think straight about anything. I was coming apart. After living in my apartment for 2 years, I decided to make the painful, excruciatingly difficult decision to move back home with my parents. I basically lost faith and gave up. Thank you. And that friend I referenced, Polly, that is my friend who I want to honor every birthday of hers. She's no longer with us. She didn't die because of violence, to my knowledge. But since I knew that she had been in a violent relationship. Yeah. Okay. So this next chapter is chapter 7. More tea. And how much time do I have? I'm sorry.
You have about another 20 minutes.
Oh, another 20 minutes. Let me switch it up a little bit. Okay.
Oh, let me double check on here. Actually, yeah, in the 20 minutes.
Yep.
I'm good.
Okay.
That'll.
I think maybe this will be a short one.
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 9. How did I get here? I took direction very well in my autopilot state. I took direction on how to get fingerprinted. They would ask for my index, third finger and thumb, and I would give it. I got it right on the first take. I hit my mark for my mugshot. I didn't realize until after that maybe I shouldn't have smiled for it. I was asking anyone with a uniform if they knew where my son was taken. I was getting more and more desperate to find out that information. No one could tell me anything. I do recall someone finally telling me, upstairs until the social worker comes. What does that mean? Is he being watched by those police officers that were joking about not knowing how to take care of a baby? Wouldn't it make sense for him to be with me until the social worker comes? I was told that I would know when the social worker comes because she will talk to me. Hours were passing by and no social worker. Who was watching my baby? I remembered something I saw on TV and movies about getting a phone call. I was too stunned to call or ask to call anyone. Who would I call? Hi, Mom, guess where I'm at? Remember how you always told me not to leave my baby in the car? As I sat in the holding cell, I had a sudden peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding, and then I knew it was going to be okay. I wondered how I was going to get along with the other girls that were locked up. I figured I would just keep to myself. My breast started to get engorged from the breast milk building up with no outlet. Joaquin's aunt came to visit me and thought the peace I was experiencing was shock and denial of the circumstance I was in. She seemed to be trying to comfort me, but the words that came out of her mouth did not match that intention. Well, Nikki, you've had life too easy, so maybe that's why this is happening. This from a lady who preaches? I guess that's why I won't be reading any of her books or coming to any of her speaking engagements. Who knows? Maybe she's right. She shouldn't have gotten me the diaper service. That was too easy. Maybe then I wouldn't be in this mess. I recall being so mad at what she said, at what she was saying, but feeling too much at peace for it to register. Also, I was used to people making that kind of judgment where I'm concerned. They assume that because I'm an only child, I've had a pampered life. They only see the one side. They don't know the pain I've experienced. They don't know anything about the way I was raised. I spent 3 days in the holding cell because it was the president holiday weekend. The court was dark on Monday. The social worker came to talk to me a lot later that day. Thank God. Where is my son? Miss Mills, you are very fortunate that your mother is here. He is with her. Miss Mills, I'm concerned because when I saw your son, he was half naked. What? He was fully clothed and appropriately dressed when I was taken. She said, the officers must have changed him and not put back on all his clothes. Still, what? This was disturbing. She said she questioned my mother. When she told my mother what happened, my mother said, I told her not to do that, leaving the baby in the car. Thanks, Mom. I'm sure that really helps my case. When I told your mom how he was dressed when I showed up, your mother was surprised as well and said she saw Isaiah before you left with him and he was fully dressed, appropriate for the weather. Also, when we came to get Isaiah, he was really hungry, like he hadn't eaten for many hours. I told the officers about the food. I had a bag full of food. So she's telling me the officers starved my baby, almost froze him to death, but I'm the danger to my kids. She said that since my mother is around, they opted to put Isaiah in her custody instead of foster care. She said she talked to the father and he agreed that it would be a good idea for the baby to be with my mother, with whom I lived. The social worker seemed very optimistic about my situation. This was only my first offense, and she was convinced I learned my lesson. I was definitely scared straight. I wasn't eating in jail because I was a vegetarian, practically vegan. Nothing they served I could eat except an occasional apple. I stayed in the same funky clothes all 4 days. I didn't feel comfortable showering there. It was bad enough that you had to pee in front of everybody. My arraignment day came and I must have looked terrible. I know I smelled terrible. The public defender talked to me through the bars, a Caucasian lady in her 30s. Okay, so you left your child in the car for 40 minutes. We have the security camera that saw you when you came in. So how do you plead? Well, yeah, I did it, I said sheepishly. I wasn't proud of it, I was thinking. She said something about having a prior. What? I've never been arrested before. Okay, so I will enter you in a plea of no contest. See you in court. I got in court. I heard the DA talking to his colleagues about me. I heard a Black female say, then don't have kids. Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah, wow is here too.
That's right.
Yeah, wow. I guess everybody is supposed to be perfect and not make mistakes. Wow, I'm glad God isn't like that. You messed up, straight to hell. No second chances for you. Bye. The judge came in, well, commissioner. She was a white female, maybe in her 40s. I thought maybe she would be understanding. She left her kid in the car at the Pasadena Mall to buy some shoes after what just happened at the mall? What just happened at the mall? I was asking myself. This is just inexcusable. I'm ordering a year in jail, no OR, subject remanded to custody. I fell apart crying, completely broken down. I breastfeed my baby, I tried to tell the public defender, and the judge is telling me I can't even be let out on my own recognizances. My public defender started telling the judge how I was exclusively breastfeeding my baby, had no priors, and would like to be let out on OR to make the necessary arrangements to get my affairs in order and so forth. Okay, but she better come back when she's supposed to. Her tone was like she was referring to a career criminal. Wow, then I was released. My parents picked me up. I was in shock, still stunned by the turn of events. I would have to say goodbye to my baby for a year? Joaquin and his family were shocked. People do that all the time, leave their child in the car. Not that it's a good thing, but a year? And you have no priors? That's crazy. Fortunately, some friends of mine who had a little girl my son would play with asked me why my lawyer didn't ask for house arrest. I didn't know anything about house arrest. It's better than jail. You just have to wear a band around your ankle and there's a cost, they told me. Well, now I was wondering myself why my public defender didn't ask for that when Anne was so ready to take the order the judge gave me. I called her up and asked her about it. Oh, I don't know why I didn't think of that. No problem. The next time we go into court, we'll ask the judge and she'll probably approve it. Do you have people that can show up on that date to vouch for your character? I think so. That would help. Joaquin and his family agreed to show up that court day. I was in a dress and cleaned up a lot from the last time the judge saw me. I told her about my job with the theater company and how I've worked with kids for 10 years. Joaquin and his family said I was a wonderful mother. That was enough for the judge, and I was ordered to house arrest. Part of my conviction was 52 weeks of child abuse classes. This was ironic because between Joaquin and I was the one who would tell him beating, spanking our child wasn't the answer. How there are other more effective ways of disciplining a child. I had even suggested to him that we both attend parenting classes. His response was, well, I was beaten, I turned out fine. Really? I beg to differ. When I went to rehearsal, they commented on how I looked like I lost weight. Girl, what did you do? I didn't tell them. So that was criminal court. Now I had to go to children's court. I wasn't looking forward to it after what happened in criminal. The judge in this court, another Caucasian lady in her 40s, was like, you made a mistake. All right. It helped also that the DCFS investigator that came out to examine the house could tell right when she walked in that the child wasn't in danger. This was conveyed to the judge as well. This judge ordered that I take 6 12 weeks of parenting class, and after 6 months, we would be out of the system. I liked this judge. The difference was like night and day. The child abuse classes took place at a Catholic church in Pasadena. The classes consisted of just me and the counselor, one-on-one. He saw quickly that I knew the answers and the material already. I love kids. I work with kids and have made it my business to learn the best way to deal with them. I have always carried with me my own childhood and what mistakes not to make that my parents made. I knew the stuff he was talking about. The child abuse classes instead turned into therapy sessions. He helped me see that I was doing too much. I was not making Joaquin help out more, or at least expecting it. I was too accommodating. I would drive Isaiah to the families when he wanted. I wouldn't expect much of him. I had to start to look at myself. People pleaser. It was like when I was trying to sell the whole idea of me being pregnant. I don't expect anything from you except that you be a friend through this. He would pay me child support when he felt like it. That was getting difficult. Okay. No problem. Almost done. We would fight over it because I would begin to expect and depend that he would pay at a certain time each month. But then he would tell me at the last minute, oh, by the way, I can't get it to you this month. There was a total disregard for me and Isaiah. He just didn't get it. And if he was mad at me, he would withhold it. Why don't you go to the DA? The counselor would ask. No, I don't want to get the DA involved. That wouldn't be right. I had this crazy idea of loyalty. The man lives at home. He has a job, a car, and he can't afford to give you child support. His wages need to be garnished. Or are you going to play the victim role and keep complaining but getting nowhere? Do something about it. These sessions were helpful because I could talk about things here that I would feel I couldn't talk to anybody else about. I talked about my parents and their failing health. We talked about how it seemed like when I moved back in with my parents, their health started rapidly declining. My father was diagnosed with hepatitis C and cirrhosis of the liver. The doctor said he needed a liver transplant or he was going to die. My father basically walked around like he was on his deathbed. My mother and I started to prepare ourselves for the idea of life without my beloved dad. All of a sudden, the next thing we heard was, "Oh, his liver is fine." This was before the bipolar diagnosis. I was able to talk about my concerns about my mother and her health. How ever since I was little, I would hear my mother moaning in pain. She always was in and out of the hospital. There was always something wrong, and I went through this period of my childhood deathly afraid that my mother was going to die. I would really worry, but I got to a point where I kind of shut that part of me down. I became a little insensitive and disinterested in the problems. Every time you would ask my mother how she was doing, she would use that as an opportunity to tell you the list. It was almost like she was on stage with it. It seemed like her way to get people to pay attention to her. One day I asked her how her headache was, and she said nonchalantly that it was better, but she has this horrible pain in her leg. I would tell her, at least your head was better, but she didn't want to hear it. It's almost like she would plan for the next pain. The pains were like metro buses. If one goes away, there would be another along soon. I'm not saying that the pain wasn't real. It just seems like if you set your mind on something, you tend to get it. There was always drama in the house, and I'm not talking about the soap operas that we were both addicted to. Yes, my mother was diabetic. My mother was also very much overweight. Because of that combination, she would have complications. But every time she went to a doctor that told her to lose weight, she would be so offended, she would switch doctors until she would get the one that would ignore the weight problem and just give her more medication. You know what that doctor said? He said, I need to lose weight. What the nerve? No, Mom, have another candy bar. That'll help. There was a point that she did stop eating pork. That was huge, especially after the way she got on my case for not eating pork anymore. But Nikki, it's the other white meat. My mother was in denial about her eating habits and to some extent her weight. She tried to distract herself from it with makeup and hair weaves. My mother started losing her hair pretty young in her 30s. She would be upstairs crying and I would go and try to cheer her up. She still couldn't get over the fact that I stayed a vegetarian even when I was pregnant, and now I was raising my son vegetarian. It didn't matter that my son was healthy. It didn't matter that he didn't get the colds and so-called childhood illnesses that a lot of other babies had. I was depriving this child of meat, and there's something wrong with the mother who won't let her child eat greasy McDonald's hamburgers, fries, and ice cream. Oh well. That's one reason why my parents had such a good friend in Joaquin. Apparently, they would sit around and talk about how they didn't understand my vegetarian lifestyle and inflicting it on Isaiah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And how much time do we have left? Did I go over or is this?
Oh no, you still have a few more minutes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions or?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yay, Marvin.
Yeah. You picked two good examples to read.
Okay.
The story about Clark and then the story about being involved in the criminal justice system.
Yes, sir.
I am interested in your version of justice because as the reader, I'm getting my impression of what justice is.
Right.
And based on what I'm reading,
Mm-hmm.
I'm having trouble having a lot of sympathy for Nikki. So maybe if I understood Nikki's idea of what justice is, maybe I can understand a little bit better where she's coming from.
Okay. Well, I think from the character Nikki's perspective, justice would mean getting what you deserve, right? That's what justice is, but fair, right? In a fair way, getting what you deserve in a fair way. I think that's what the character Nikki would see justice as. But I would also say the character Nikki also has blind spots, right? Because I think I heard maybe a pastor say this, how we always want justice for somebody else. And that justice is like, they need to be locked up. They need to be this. But for ourselves, oh, we want the mercy. We want the grace. We want the mercy. It's like, what, why? What did I do? And likewise, again, with forgiveness. A lot of times it's hard to forgive other people. But at the same time, we're like forgiving ourselves right and left and making excuses and rationalizing our behavior. So I think that's a very good analysis, So the title, Justice or Just Me, I write it, putting it out there, because sometimes a lot of things that happen look like justice, but then is it really? Or is it happening because of the choices you made? Or is it happening because of, race or socioeconomic background or what you look like?
But in the two pieces that you read, or the pieces you read about the two different judges, it felt like it was really having an interpersonal reaction to the judge. First judge, yes, a year is a crazy sentence. But it seemed to me that what she was really upset about was how mean the tone, how kind of anonymous she was, right?
Yeah.
This judge was just kind of speaking into a void and just saying this was, almost like she wasn't in the room.
Right.
And then the second judge, who I honestly didn't hear that much difference in terms of sentencing. It seemed the second judge was almost as harsh. That's 6 months versus a year and not being in jail or whatever. Anyway, it's like adding on to something that's already pretty extreme. You've already got a year in house arrest and 52 weeks of child abuse classes, and then the judge adds another 6 months of parenting classes. That's a lot more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't consider the second judge just inherently nice,
Mm-hmm.
but Nikki's reaction from what you read to us was that she liked the way the judge spoke to her.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm an ex-lawyer, and I think that what you're identifying there, whether you're trying to or not, is that people are in the system believing that they're actually being treated as people.
Yeah.
That they're interacting like we're interacting.
Right.
And they're not.
Right.
Right? And they don't really understand the robotic nature.
Yeah.
The automatic nature. Almost like, my observation of judges would say, if they're asked to make an emotional decision, they get really close, right? If emotion is part of what they're supposed to be doing on the bench, that really bothers them. It almost incenses them, right? You're actually asking me to apply mercy, compassion.
Yeah.
You don't want me to look at the letter of the law.
Right.
You're actually asking me to make a choice about whether a mother should be breastfeeding their child. That's not in my job description.
Yeah.
I'm going to get upset about it.
Yeah. Interesting.
It felt to me the way you're describing it, something I haven't really felt just before I became a lawyer, which is that you're actually, she's actually experiencing in part the way people experience relationships.
Wow. Experiencing court as
we're all taught that that's not how it goes.
Interesting. Thank you for that. Did you have something? Did I see your hand raised inside your? Did you want to add?
Well, I'll just ask this question. You may already know, but maybe you have something to add. Where did you get your inspiration?
Okay.
For the book itself?
Okay.
Writing.
Where did I get the inspiration for writing the book? It is based on some experiences I've had on my journeys. Definitely. Yes. That is the inspiration. Because I feel like certain things that happen to me, I feel like haven't just happened to me. And as I talk to other people, and as we see with the reckoning of George Floyd and everything's coming out, we see that there's an imbalance of justice. Like there's two justices. Like you see where maybe white people might be driving drunk and get pulled over by the police. And they're just like, okay, well, just drive safe, get home or whatever. I've actually witnessed somebody telling me that's what happened to them. Actually, one of the characters in the book who I said was, drunk all the time, would constantly say he would constantly have interactions with the police, but they would just be like, just get home or whatever. Whereas people of color, Black people, are handled differently. And I feel like I have seen that firsthand. I've actually been able to witness it. And myself being raised in predominantly white schools and trying to assimilate, I feel like I didn't see that a lot until I got out there and then started cutting my hair and looking more not assimilated and letting my hair go natural, more natural and short. And then I just felt like I was treated differently, and it was like really shocking to me. It's like, and it was a wake-up call. And I'm thankful actually for that wake-up call, or else I could still be naively thinking, oh, justice is always just, and oh, well, if they're in jail, they must have deserved it, and but I think I've been able to see firsthand that's not always the case. I mean, we want justice to be fair, and I just feel like the lack of humanity in some judges is crazy, and even okay, I don't know if anybody else had this experience, but I've had the experience. Usually, actually, I have good experience with police. Most of my interactions with police have been very positive, but there are some occasions where, for instance, I was driving Uber and it was a busy night and it was maybe 2 a.m. and I was on Colorado Boulevard and I was trying to pick up somebody from one of those bars, and I could only park in a certain area. But the cop on the scene, yelled at me for parking there. I mean, just was not trying to talk to me normal or anything. It was just like, you just leave, just back up. But I look in my rearview mirror, and then there's another cop not realizing that he's standing behind me. If I were to back up, I would hit him. Wow. So what am I supposed to do? So meanwhile, this cop is yelling at me, back up, and he's having a conniption. And I'm just like, what am I gonna do? And then my alert's going off for the next ride and everything. So I'm looking up in the back and I slowly start to back up. So then the cop in the back notices, right? What are you doing? Leave. So then I lost money. But yeah, again, when people yell at you profanities, for me, it's hard. It's like, I can't really take in what you're asking me to do, because it's like, what is all this? And so I can imagine how people must feel, when the cops are on the scene sometimes and they just start right away yelling at you on these profanities. It's like, well, dang, what the heck? But yeah. But they don't treat everybody like that. They don't talk to, so I don't understand what this training. Right. And then I had the experience where living in Altadena, and you call the cops to help you. It was different. I mean, with my father, where my father was concerned, nobody got taken to jail or whatever, or helped or in any way. So then when I was in Sylmar or San Fernando area, totally different experience. Call the cops. No, somebody's going to be going to jail. You don't know which one. So yeah, I want to expose the disparities. That's why I'm writing this series. Thank you for asking the question. And when I would perform the monologue piece that is based off of the book series, since 2008, I've been performing a 10-minute version, and now it's a full length. But over the years, the feedback I would get from a lot of people is that you need to finish it, because that's my story too. You need to, whether you're a mother or, I feel like somebody's experienced some injustice in some way, or perceived injustice. Yes.
Well, and that brings up.
Yes.
I thought the story, was even broader than just trying to get caught up with the justice system. But it seems like it started from when you were a child, and how you were raised, and how you, I guess, started to interpret what was what you consider as being fair or not fair. Getting whippings from your parents or something.
Yeah.
Or your interactions with your friends.
Yeah.
Something like that kind of gives you an impression as to how you develop your sense of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those decisions, or a lot of that growth, experience that you had, kind of, I guess, led to the naivete in terms of some of the decisions that you made that, just that,
the character.
Yeah, the character. Nick.
Oh, that Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki. That led to some poor decisions.
Yes,
or making. And then how do you define that versus, as you mentioned, just the desire that the experience is supposed to highs and the lows.
Yes.
As opposed to going with the whys.
Yeah.
What we consider the right. It's hard to kind of separate the difference between the experiences, between, say, law enforcement as to what is right and wrong, or the judge, and what is fair.
Yeah.
And kind of learning, well, how do you survive in this society? Because as a child growing up, we received whippings, but the whippings were, you didn't come away feeling as though you were unloved, or that your parents were bad. It was a sense of, hey,
Well, for you.
But I mean, in terms of what the kind of the general,
what you're supposed to,
what the general idea behind it was, hey, I'm whipping you now, to teach you how life can be in terms of if you do something bad, as opposed to you getting caught up in the system, the criminal justice system, where you won't get the chance to. You may not necessarily get a chance to learn that.
Right.
Because once you're in the system, then you just this anonymous figure. They're not there to love you. They're there to punish you. And so you kind of learn early, kind of how to navigate the society in which you live in. So when you encounter, like law enforcement, you do whatever you can to try to avoid any escalating of the situation. Try to avoid it as much as you can.
Right.
With the understanding that, hey, there's nothing good that can come out of this. Get too caught up with this individual.
Yeah.
Or if someone says something bad to me, call me names or something.
Yeah.
that, maybe it's best if I try to navigate around that as opposed to be aggressive and take it on.
Yeah.
So it seems as though Nikki didn't get a chance to. I just didn't appreciate or didn't understand some of that teaching that maybe she was getting as a kid, or maybe her interpretation of it was that poor parenting versus.
But are you seeing that with how she related to officers? I guess I'm not understanding, or just her interpersonal relations.
Just kind of, her encounters with.
Because she didn't get belligerent with officers, and she still was treated.
Yeah, but in terms of her interpretation of what is fair,
Gotcha.
What justice is.
Yeah. Because to answer or to speak to what Philip was saying about the nice judge, I think Nikki was, because the nice judge was actually saying, well, you made a mistake. She wasn't treating her like, how dare you? You should have known what happened at Pasadena Mall and all the history before that. It's like, what kind of mother are you? It's like you become a mother and all of a sudden you take on this cape. It's like, you got to know this, you got to know that. So it felt like that second nice judge was like, yeah, okay, so this is what needs to be done. Like, I have to do this, the 6.5 weeks or what have you. But it could have been like, sure. But it could have been a lot worse, like could have stayed in the system a lot longer. And it just felt like she was seeing Dominique as a human being who will make mistakes, but it wasn't necessarily intentional, like neglect, like who cares type of thing. And sometimes I feel like law enforcement, the justice system, makes up their mind just on how you look.
What about your readers? Don't you think your readers are gonna make up our minds about leaving a kid in the car?
Of course.
Some of the readers may sympathize more with the judges.
Of course. That's the whole point. What's your point? Yes, that's the whole point of putting this out there. You have it resting on your lip.
More like
the cork in the
bobbing around in the sea.
Oh, cork in the sea. I'm glad I understood now what you were saying, because I was like, because I wanted to hear like cog in the wheel or something, but I was hearing cork and I couldn't put it together. Cork in the sea. Yeah. Interesting. I hope so. Yeah, I mean, like part of what I read, she said she was scared straight. I think she was scared straight. You always, well, it is. I mean, it's.
Just said it because the line was they tried to scare me straight. Without any commentary.
I don't think
using the scared straight.
Yeah.
Trope.
Yeah.
I just thought you were being ironic.
Well, again, it's up to the reader, and maybe that's why you should read the book. Cover to cover, $20. Because yeah, all this was taken out of context.
Why you pick the character?
No, you can't. No, I'm just playing. Of course you can ask.
No, but what you did remind me a lot of another novel by Danielle Ruiz called Coconut Verses, where it's semi-autobiographical, but he flipped it where the character was his like brother.
Ah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be some legal reasons. There might be some legal reasons. Very good questions and comments and feedback. And Jesse's getting up.
No. Oh, I don't know.
No, you're my gauge
Okay.
as to,
For sure.
are we done?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just want to let everybody know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorinda.
Thank you so much. Just want to let you know that there are some signed copies at Romans at Hoopla Emporium. Hoopla's on Fair Oaks. Fair Oaks. Yeah. Hoopla's on Fair Oaks. And it's online also and in libraries, in La Pintoresca Library, which might be a closed library right now, but it's also at Altadena Library.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
very happy. Thank you so much for having me, Jess.
Oh, no problem. Well, thank you guys for all coming out as well. We appreciate you guys. And we appreciate you viewers on YouTube for watching, and we'll watch later. Again, I want to say I thank Latanya for allowing me to have authors come this entire year, whether it was virtual or in person. So I thank her for this as well. And I'm looking forward to what will come for 2022. And that's all for now. That's you guys have a great afternoon, an excellent Sunday, and remember to make my place your place.
Saturday.
Yeah.